So desperate now, he's so on the run that he resorted just to outright lies. Outright lies.
I will leave it for the public to come to their own judgments about someone who once flirted with Hitler Youth when he was younger. That is for the public.
Nigel Farage just humiliated David Lammy in front of the entire country. One reckless comment, one ugly comparison, and suddenly the Deputy Prime Minister is fighting for his career. You could almost feel the political air suck out of Westminster the moment Lammy dropped the word Hitler. That single slip turned what should have been a dull press briefing into a career-ending explosion. It all starts with a routine setup, journalists lined up, cameras flashing, everyone expecting the usual careful answers. Then someone asks the golden question: do you think Nigel Farage is racist? It's a setup any politician can spot from miles away. The classic trap. Most would sidestep it, mumble something about respecting all views and move on. But David Lammy didn't sidestep. He stepped right into it and detonated his own credibility. He didn't hedge, didn't soften, didn't even hesitate. He claimed Farage had once flirted with the Hitler Youth during his school days, on camera, on record. From the second most powerful seat in government, you could literally hear the collective gasp from the press bench. This wasn't a rumour whispered in a pub. This was a Nazi comparison dropped in broad daylight, and everyone knew what that meant. Because in British politics, invoking Hitler isn't just an insult, it's political suicide. It cheapens history, it offends millions, and it screams desperation. Nobody throws that word unless they've lost control of the argument. The reaction was instant. Twitter, or X if we're being technical, erupted. Clips hit millions of views within minutes. Journalists who normally cover for Labour couldn't even pretend to defend it. Did he really say that? Became the only question trending nationwide. And the man at the centre of it all? Farage, cool, smirking, completely unfazed. He called it complete nonsense and went about his day. No outrage, no retaliation, just a shrug. Because Farage understands one thing that politicians like Lammy never do: every establishment attack makes him stronger. Every time they try to bury him under smears, they end up proving his point. He spent years being called racist, far-right, dangerous, divisive, and yet every insult pulls in more supporters. People look at the hysteria and see panic, not conviction. They see the establishment losing control. So when Lammy launched his Hitler Youth grenade, all it did was confirm what millions already believed. Labour is terrified of Nigel Farage. By the time Lammy's clip made its way around the internet, even Labour's own people were panicking. Insiders leaked that Party HQ went into emergency mode. Staffers were messaging each other things like, "This will stick for years." No one could spin it, not even the friendly papers. Within hours, commentators from both sides were shredding him. Piers Morgan called the remark grotesque. Even The Guardian ran a cautious headline about an ill-judged statement from the Deputy PM. That's the kind of diplomatic language they use when they're trying not to say catastrophic. The smear had backfired instantly. What was supposed to make Farage look like a villain instead turned Lammy into one, and while Labour's media team was drafting apologies, Farage's supporters were clipping, sharing and celebrating. It was political alchemy. Lammy's insult turned to gold in Farage's hands. And the irony? Farage didn't even have to lift a finger. He didn't rant or rage. He just let the establishment implode. The same journalists who spent years attacking him were suddenly running defence pieces for him. That's how big Lammy's blunder was. It cracked the entire narrative open. By nightfall, every political chat show was covering it. From GB News to LBC, the outrage was unanimous. Even commentators who despise Farage had to admit the Nazi comparison crossed a line. You could see the fatigue in the public reaction. People weren't just angry, they were tired. Tired of the constant smearing, tired of politicians using moral panic as a weapon. Farage's team wasted no time. They clipped Lammy's statement, branded it with the caption, "Labour calls you a Nazi," and blasted it across social media. Within 24 hours, it had millions of views. Reform UK's donation page saw a massive spike. Every insult against Farage had just bought him more political capital. Meanwhile, Lammy disappeared from the spotlight. His office said he needed time to clarify remarks. That phrase alone is the political equivalent of waving a white flag. 48 hours later, he resurfaced, visibly shaken, eyes tired, tone completely deflated. Gone was the tough-talking moral crusader. What stood in front of the cameras looked more like a man begging for survival. He started soft, trying to sound calm, but every word reeked of panic. Farage has denied it, and I accept that he has denied it, he said. Then came the line that cemented the disaster. I would like to clarify my position. Clarify. The most predictable word in the Westminster dictionary. Translation: I messed up, please don't destroy my career. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, he added, I wasn't at school with Nigel Farage, I don't know what songs he sang at school. That single sentence killed every ounce of credibility he had left. So let's get this straight. Britain's Deputy Prime Minister accused a political opponent of Nazi sympathies based on rumours he couldn't verify, about songs he never heard at a school he never attended. That's not politics, that's gossip disguised as moral outrage. The backlash was immediate. Comment sections filled with resign. Conservative MPs pounced, calling the statement disgraceful. Even neutral observers said it crossed a red line. In one short interview, Lammy had done what no Tory campaign could. He turned the Labour Party's self-righteous image into a national joke. And this wasn't some random backbencher. This was the second most powerful man in government. Watching him fumble through that apology was like watching someone realise in real time that their career might be over. The body language said it all, hands shaking, voice cracking, eyes darting between reporters. The British public loves drama, but they hate hypocrisy. And in that moment, Lammy gave them both. He'd tried to play the moral high ground and fell straight into the pit he'd dug himself. The so-called clarification did nothing except confirm what everyone already suspected. He didn't have a clue what he was talking about. Farage, meanwhile, stayed silent. He didn't even need to respond. Every headline was already doing the work for him. Deputy PM backtracks after Hitler remark. Lammy clarifies statement on Farage. Labour in damage control. The optics were lethal. When the dust started to settle, everyone turned to Keir Starmer. The press wanted to know if he'd back Lammy or distance himself. And for once, Starmer didn't dance around the question. A reporter looked him dead in the eye and asked, "Is Nigel Farage racist?" The answer froze the room. Starmer said, "No, I do not believe Nigel Farage is racist, nor do I think Reform UK voters are racist. They're concerned about our borders." Just like that, Labour's entire strategy shattered. The years of moral grandstanding, the endless headlines about far-right extremism, the smug TV panels calling Reform supporters xenophobic, gone in a single quote. Starmer had just publicly admitted that millions of voters weren't bigots. They were just frustrated citizens asking fair questions. And the worst part, it was all on camera. No spin, no misquote. His own words. Reform UK wasted zero time. They clipped the quote, stamped their logo on it, and blasted it across every platform with one brutal caption. Even Starmer admits we're not racist. It hit millions of views overnight. Reform voters were calling it vindication. Inside Labour, aides were reportedly furious. MPs texted journalists saying they'd been blindsided. The activist base was livid. The same crowd that built its moral identity around calling Reform dangerous now had to watch their own leader contradict them. The damage wasn't just external, it was psychological. For years, Labour thrived on the idea that Farage and his supporters were beneath them. Now their Prime Minister was effectively saying, actually, they're not. And you could see the panic ripple through the ranks. Talk shows tried to explain it away, spinning it as a pragmatic response. But nobody bought it. The clip had already gone viral. The words "Farage isn't racist" were echoing across Britain. Reform members were chanting it at rallies. It wasn't just a gaffe, it was a turning point. The mask had slipped, and voters saw what was really behind it. Then came the hypocrisy that pushed everyone over the edge. A few days later, Starmer faced another press question, this time about Donald Trump. The US president had said London was heading toward Sharia law. The same press that grilled Lammy asked Starmer, "Was that racist? You'd expect consistency, right?" "Wrong." Starmer suddenly found his diplomatic tone. "I'm not going to start down the road of discussing whether things said by others are racist or not." "Excuse me? When it's Nigel Farage, you're ready to unleash Nazi comparisons. When it's Trump talking about Britain's capital, suddenly you're Switzerland." The double standard was so blatant that even BBC anchors raised eyebrows. That clip did more damage than Lammy's apology. It showed exactly how the establishment operates. One rule for opponents, another for allies. Attack the domestic rival, protect the international partner. It's not about morality, it's about optics. And voters saw it. They saw the calculation, the spin, the selective outrage. Farage capitalised immediately. He released a statement warning that this kind of rhetoric, branding millions of reform supporters as racist and extreme, wasn't just dishonest, it was dangerous. Words have consequences, he said. When you paint people as Nazis, you invite violence. And he wasn't exaggerating. Britain had already seen political violence before, from MPs murdered to campaigners attacked. The message landed hard. If you treat half the country like villains, don't be surprised when tension explodes. Commentators on both sides agreed. Labour's credibility was falling apart. Their moral compass was gone. Their messaging was incoherent, and the public could sense it. Every time they tried to pivot, it made things worse. While everyone focused on Lammy's meltdown and Starmer's backpedalling, Labour quietly moved ahead with something that barely made headlines: a mandatory digital ID plan. Officially, it was about tackling illegal work and enhancing border security. But critics called it exactly what it looked like: surveillance wrapped in bureaucracy. The timing couldn't have been more suspicious. Just as voters were furious over the Hitler comment and Labour's hypocrisy, they drop a proposal that would give the government the power to monitor citizens in the name of safety. Commentators called it control disguised as reform. Nigel Farage called it a freedom trade-off no one asked for. And he wasn't wrong. He's been warning for years that the establishment would rather control people than fix the border, that they'd spend billions tracking citizens instead of stopping illegal crossings, that they'd fail to solve the core issue, immigration, but expand the surveillance state to look busy. And suddenly, that's exactly what Labour was doing. Boat crossings across the Channel were still happening daily. Immigration numbers were still rising. Yet somehow, the government's priority became digital IDs. It was the perfect distraction. Pretend to secure the country while tightening control over its citizens. Voters could see the trick. From Yorkshire to Cornwall, people were openly asking the same question. If this is about borders, why are you monitoring us instead of stopping the boats? The anger spread fast. Reform UK rallies grew. Labour's approval numbers dipped. Even neutral commentators began warning that this was becoming a trust crisis. Because that's what it was. Trust collapsing in real time. By now, the pattern was undeniable. Lammy's smear proved Labour's arrogance. Starmer's contradiction exposed their hypocrisy. The digital ID plan confirmed their obsession with control. And Nigel Farage? He was sitting back, watching the establishment crumble under its own weight.